Alright, I'm going to continue on in this video about modeling the scene for CSC 187, where we're creating this scene from this video, this Rush album, and I'm making the objects. Now, what you're seeing here are the objects that I've already modeled so far. The last one is going to be this TV right here. Then I'll need to do the floor and the trim and the windows still. But as I'm moving along, I have my scene set. And I've modeled these objects already. You can see that. Now, when I'm modeling, sometimes when we have organic shapes, the things that we model are rather low poly. You know, like this TV is low poly, it's squared. But what we do is we add to it, we take that mesh and the point of it is all these edges that you see, all these edges are used to hold the shape. So if I do what's called a smooth proxy, I can hit this is on my keypad, 1, 2 shows me this bounding box around it, but the estimated shape of my object, and if I hit the 3 key, I get this nice rounded form that I can kind of see how the edges. But that's not really what it's going to, it really looks like this. So we actually have to perform what's called a smooth operation on it, where I'm under mesh and I smooth. And if I go to the options box, I hit reset, and what it'll do is it'll take every face and divide it into 4, and then so at one division it'll take all the faces, divide it into 4, and then if I go 3 or 2, it'll take all of those faces and divide them into 4, and then all of them into 4, then all of them into 4, the more and more and more divisions I have. Now I've done this on my object already in my inputs, so I can use the division value. So if I hit 1, notice how it subdivides and starts to round my object. If I increase this to 2, takes that down even further. And as I continue, 3, I get smoother and smoother and smaller edges. Now I usually don't go much beyond 3, honestly. If I did, if I went 4, it's just going to get more and more smooth, and for whatever purpose that I need, I'm going to, I'm only going to smooth it as much as I need. So for this project, a 3 is usually pretty good, and so I may need 2 or 3. So 3 is pretty good. Same with this. This already has some in there, so this TV has it. And if I did 3, this is how everything starts to look. Now I'm not smoothing this because this is a straight edge object and it's not organic, and I don't need to smooth it at all. And it has these bevel edges. Sometimes though, like this down here is smoothed. I did smooth that. So as I kind of go along, I may or may not need to smooth something as much, so I can increase that until I have a nice shape that I want. So I don't always have to smooth things, but sometimes, it just depends on the scene. All right. So now I'm going to be working on. Now remember, I have my different layers, and notice that since I duplicated this ring here in the last video, that object here is actually part of. I don't have all these in the same scene. I need to add that to the group. So this is actually in a different group. And I have this knob. And then I have this group, which is TV2 group, which I need to add it. So actually I need to take it out of here. And I'll try to drag it down here and put it in my TV2 group there. So it's all part of it. So I can easily move things from one group to another by using my outliner like that. So I have 2 groups. And then this group needs to be added to this layer. Right now I don't have anything. I have this TV in there. And I need to add this to a new layer. So this is TV2. So this is going to be called TV2. can't have those spaces. And I can then turn it on and turn it off. Oh, I need to add that to it. So I need to add that. So I'm just going to go over and say add selected. And then I have all those things there. And then this is background scene. So when you're in a hurry, sometimes you don't label things properly, as I have done here. So this is TV1. And it keeps things organized, so I can bring things up and into my scene as I want, and take things out of my scene as I want. And so what I need to do now is I'm going to be building this TV here. And it's a little bit more challenging here, this TV. But I'm going to probably approach it a little bit different. I'm going to do the basic shape of it. Again, when you model something, you may have to model it more than once. I may have an idea about how I want to model something, and then it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all the way I thought. So what I'm seeing when I look at this is a cube here, a basic rounded edged cube with an extrusion across the top, and then a rounded back. So then I'm going to add some geometry to kind of make up these edges around here. I don't know if I'll extrude out these edges, because I think I may have a better result if I make it multiple objects, and then this plate here, and then these various knobs. So, and then this object. So these are all just very simple. This object just needs to kind of be a form. It's not going to be I'm not going to get up close to it, but I just want to get the shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cube here with divisions or with edge loops, and then I'm going to extrude up and taper it in. So that's going to be my basic shape. So nothing too complex. And then there are some additional things that if I want to add these here, I will. So in a very kind of quick and dirty way, I'm going to, I could pretty much take this, and I'm going to hide all these other things and put this in my scene. And I'm going to call this TV3. So I'm going to kind of go back to my main world here, and I'm going to create a cube. I'm going to call this TV3. And really, I'm not going to do too much with it, except I'm going to put in some, I'm going to hide my grid by clicking on this. So this is kind of acute, so it's a little bit, I might just scale it a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly put in a couple edge loops. So I'm going to insert edge loop here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my insert edge loop tool. Oops, as you double click on that, screen open up real well. I'm going to go to, I can add multiple edge loops, and I'm going to say 3. Because what I want to be able to do is click on this edge and get these 3 edge loops. And the reason I did that is because I wanted kind of equal distances of these. So I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to use the scale tool, and I'm just going to use the scale tool to just push these edges out a little bit. That'll be these little edges on the side. I'm going to close this. I'll need to remember to reset my settings, because the next time I use it. So I have these little extrusions kind of on the side, and I'm going to kind of do that, because what it does is, and then it gives me these 2 faces right here. And if I take these 2 faces, and if I just extrude up a little bit, and I can scale those in a little bit, I kind of get that that shape. So here's the edge, here's this edge, here's this top part, and then the rest of it just looks like it's just kind of it's just a simple little rectangle with this extruded top. That gives me the ability to put in a screen right here, well, not quite right there, and then leave some space below it. So that's just basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to take these vertices in the back here, and I'm going to bring them in. And then I'm going to take these faces, because it looks like, I can't quite tell if this goes all the way, but I'm going to assume it does. So I'm going to take these faces here, and I'm going to extrude them down. So I'm using my extrusion. I'm going to pull them out a little bit. I'm going to keep the bottom straight, and I'm going to go 1, and then hit the G key, and I'm going to go one more time. And then what I want to do is basically kind of create a curve. Across the top. So 3 points make a curve. So beginning, middle, and end. So if I were to round this TV right now, it looks something like that. But what I want to try to do is take these components, and I'm going to just kind of lower them down a little bit to create a curve. So 3 points make a curve. So I start at a point, I end at a point. So usually just C whenever it's square. Start at a point, end at a point, or sorry, end at a point, and then in the middle is where that curve, that arc is going to be. So I just simply, when I smooth this, it will give me kind of that squared off look. Now I have geometry, very simple geometry. If I need to, I can bevel these edges across the top, or I can just add some edge loops to tighten that geometry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm just going to put in some edge loops to tighten up some of this geometry. So if I want to tighten, see, that's what I don't want. Notice there's a mistake. I added too much geometry. See these edges. Now I'm just going to hit Control Z. That's why you got to reset. So under my insert edge loop, I go to my options box, reset the tool so that it's just relevant. Then when I go back, I can just put in my geometry where I want it. So I want to tighten this edge here, and I want to pull this edge here, like that. It's actually a little too far out, but you can kind of see how it pulls the geometry. I'm going to tighten this edge across here, and across here, and across here. And that gives me a very, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to adjust some of these edges because I think that I pulled it out a little too far. And I need to take these faces. But notice how I'm not working with tons and tons and tons of geometry here. I am really just working with, now I want to make sure I get my faces. So what I want to do is I'm going to pull that in. And I really need to tweak that. And that's okay. That doesn't bother me too much. Another way to do it is to go into the vertices, go into my front view, and grab these. And just move those in a little bit. Oh, don't do that. Somehow I messed that up. So this happens sometimes. Not sure what happened there. these corners back. All right. So I just want to bring that in and make this look a little square here. Always bouncing around in my views. Constantly bouncing. All right. And it's kind of hard to tell what that looks like. If I give myself a little proxy, you can see I have a pretty good indication of the TV already. There's something screwy going on right up here. I'm not sure what it is. I think it's just to look at that point. I'm just, as I smooth that, I guess it looks pretty good. Still got that nice hard edge. And as I just kind of push that in a little bit further to give it a little bit of a harder shape. So I have basically a very simple form, and I always kind of look at the bounding box and I have to decide if I like the hardness of that edge or not. I think I do. I think I'll just leave it. Now, the question is, can I extrude in the face right there? Because right now it's flat, and this goes in. So, the screen comes up into this region. So the screen kind of square. So I think maybe what I'll do is make a little recess. So one thing I can do is kind of take this area. This part might be tricky. This is one of those places where when you model something for the first time and how you end up doing it later may not always work out. So you'll do the same thing. You have to make decisions. You have to decide or try something. So what I'm going to do is, first thing I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to extrude in place and extrude this down a little bit. Because this will kind of be my recessed screen, I think. I need this edge. I need it to go into this space a little bit, so might be a little trickier. I'm going to undo that. So I'm going to undo until I deselect, because what I don't want to do is back up just enough, but not have... Now here's something I'm noticing. See this edge right here? This is not, I don't want this, because what's happening here is that I have an edge pushed too far into the other geometry, and I'm getting an overlap, I think, what I'm seeing. This edge here, I'm just noticing, noticing this. This seems out of place to me, so I'm curious as to where it belongs. So notice that that edge was pushed outside. Now see these black lines? That's an error. That's bad. When you see this black, that means you have geometry underneath other geometry. It's like two pieces of paper on top of one another, and it's shadowing. So I'm looking for those types of things when I am modeling. So I did the same thing here. I pushed that edge too far, and I knew that was weird because this line did not extend through here. So I have to watch out for things like that. So those types of issues are things you will discover also here. So sometimes sometimes I've added too much. So what I'm thinking is sometimes you do too much too soon. So these edges here, think I'll take them out. I don't need to do that. And it complicates what I'm trying to do right now. So even though it's working, and I know that it's working, it's complicating something else. So I'm going to say, sometimes this does, I'm going to say it's delete edges. So that's under Edit Mesh, delete edges and vertices, because I don't want to leave any vertices on my geometry. So what I want to do is, I'm going to take these faces here, and I'm going to extrude them down a little bit. I'm going to do something like this. And I'm going to do it again, G, and bring it. See, there's paper. See the edges? When the edges overlap, that's bad. Don't want to see that. You'd have to go in and fix that. All right, this is what I'm going to do. Now I've given myself a little bit more geometry and a little bit more ability to kind of shape this space, because I have this part across the top, which I can keep right there. Then I have a screen that kind of morphs, and this is where I'm going to use a tool. So right now I can just kind of move this around and shape this a little bit. And I may not need to do this, but this is just kind of how you can shape a form. Now, because I want to be able to move this kind of free form like this, but if I do that, it can push the geometry in and you really can't tell. So what I can do is I can actually constrain the movement by going up to my tool settings, double clicking on my tools, and actually I can choose the transform constrain to surface or to surface, so that it'll move within the surface, but I can't move it really off of the surface. I can't move it out of its plane. So I can kind of take these things like this, and I can do a little bit better job of just kind of shaping things. So what I want to try to do is just kind of shape this more round. And what I need to do is always look at my reference, because I have a tendency to forget about that. Keeping that in the center, and just kind of shaping a hole here. And I've got this part across the top, but I don't want to mess up. I just want to kind of make a hole for the TV, right? Because this is going to round. It kind of looks like a piece of toast at the moment. Now I'm just going to try this. This might be all right. Now that I have that kind of set into place, what I actually want to do is to shape this a little bit into a screen. So I'm going to use the edges here. I think maybe. Sometimes it takes a little bit to kind of get your vision to come through. So you know you can do it sometimes if you have experience, because you're like, oh, I've done this before, right? I have this, I know I can do it. It's just a matter of sometimes it's like you're working with spider webs. Oh, I have my constraint on at the moment, so I need to turn that off. I feel like I'm untwisting things. So here we go. Now that doesn't look super beautiful, but this kind of gives me this round shape, like so, where the TV would go in here and there. So it's not as pretty as I was hoping it would be, but now once I have that, I still have the bounding box, and I can put in some of my harder edges now. Kind of push that forward and pull this along this edge here. And here. Now the back of the TV, I'm not too worried about. Pull that there. And so what I'm doing is I added an edge loop across this region, kind of pull that in. Still need to add an edge loop across this to pull that out. The problem is that's just ugly. So I think my first idea was better. So this is probably going to happen to you. As you model something, if you start thinking about it, sometimes the model just doesn't look, or this doesn't work the way you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that aside, because you saw, I'm going to call that TV3 Fail. And this will happen. I've modeled many things many times, and didn't work. So I'm going to go ahead and make another cube and call this TV3 and do what I did the first time and then approach it from a different way. And that was, I scaled it out. I added my inserted my edge loops. I added 3, remember? And I added 3 of them equally. I took my edges here, took one set of edge and this set of edge, and I kind of scaled them to the edge just a little bit. Then I took these faces, this face and this face, and I extruded it up, right? A little bit for that upper panel, right, for this part. Then I took these back faces. I could grab all of these vertices here, and I brought them in. And then I took the faces here. Very simple. This keeps the geometry so simple. Extruded that out. Really once, and then again twice. And then I took the top vertices of this and this, and I lowered them down. One, two. And then I get this beautiful rounded shape, which is very nice. And then from here, I think all I'll do is just add some insert edge loops to hold the form. And I won't go too much farther than that. I'll just hold the form, reset my settings here, and then I'll just add the rim to it. So I got a nice shape there, get a nice shape up here, nice shape over here, nice shape over here, and then nice shape up front. Oops, that's a little too much. So I'm going to back that off. So that gives me a nice, looks like I grabbed a vertex over here that's out of whack. So these two are out of alignment. So I'm going to go to wireframe and look at those and get them lined up. So I'm going to look at them from the side. What I want to do is make sure I raise them to the same level. So these guys need to be moved. I believe I need to move them up a little bit. Yeah. Just want to make sure I have the right ones. All right. So what I'm going to do is then I'm just going to add, so there's my TV again, holding that shape. And I'm just going to make a little rim around here. Let's see. So I'm going to go up. I have an idea. Polygon, pipe, pipe. I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees, X. Reduce the numbers of the pipe to 8. Do 6 maybe. No, 8. 8 is better. Raise height. This, the thickness of it. Scale it down. Because remember, this is going to become like a tube. So as I smooth Proxy, it becomes like a tube. So as it kind of gets shaped, I'm just going to kind of shape it. So this is flat, so these can get moved down like flat, move up, like so. So it just kind of makes, I take these guys, just ease them out, just, no, I think it's not too bad actually. And remember, I need to, if I add an edge loop, around these corners, it will kind of pull it in. So edge loop, and reset my settings on that. Make sure I have it reset. And if I pull up an edge loop here, I get more of a square. Pull up an edge loop here. Pull an edge loop in, like so. If I go into, so then I get this shape like a TV cell. Just gonna kind of put that in place. And down like this. Let me scale it up a little bit. Make it a little wider. Doesn't need to be that thin. So this is kind of how I'm going to do it. Instead of trying to add all that geometry, I'm just going to do this, and then I'm going to square this. Go in my property box. I'm going to insert edge loop around here to tighten that up, and then on the inside to tighten that up, just like that. And then, oops, Control Z, I don't want that. Turn off my tool. And then I get that shape. All right. So to see how much faster that was, sometimes trying to make it too complicated doesn't work in my favor. So I do have a tendency from time to time to do things the wrong way. I'm going to take this and I'm going to deselect these by holding down Shift and selecting those. Make sure I don't have anything else selected. Because what I want is these back faces. I don't need them, so I'm going to just delete them. And then I can just grab the vertex here and just move that in, make it as thin or as thick as I need it to be. It doesn't need to be that thick. And then move the object into my TV here, like so. Let it stick out as far as it needs to. And remember, it's going to be smooth, so it's going to look more like that. And I can back those. It's got a nice little corner and a nice little rounded surface, so as you make decisions on this, as I move this, I can constrain that to the surface, kind of slide it up. Again, I'm going to take this edge, slide it using my constraint, slide it. Nope. It's causing me error or something. Take this one, slide it in. Not too close. I guess I gotta see how close it is in the real geometry. That's the problem. So I'm getting a nice sharp edge, but I can't cross over the geometry. And I think that's what it's saying. I'm pushing it too far. I don't want to mess up my geometry by doing that. Slide that. Let's slide this one in. Kind of closer. Or maybe this one. It's a little closer together. And then take this one. Oops. Can't. Yeah, when it's constraint, you can't do that. So I'm going to take out my constraints. Then if I move that edge, I can kind of round that as much as I need it to be rounded. But I'm fairly happy with that so far. So again, all right. And then making these knobs, just basic cylinders, putting them in, and then this plate will be, that's a little trickier. This could be done with texture maps or something like that, I'll probably just do this little plate out of, I'm going to have to make these holes here. So that's going to take quite a bit of geometry. Just like one. I have to count all these. There's like 15 holes right there, so I'll have to think about that for a second. Could start with a plane that has subdivisions on it, 10 subdivisions across, 10 subdivisions down, subdivisions in height. If I set 30, and if I did something like, I went into the faces, and I went every other. It's going to be kind of hard to see from this view. Don't skip it, don't mess it up. Oops, don't want to do that. And then I deleted those, and I have these little panels. I have these panel, this panel, this panel, this panel. And I could do the same thing. And so I could do something like this, where I have, just basically take this and this, and what I'll do is get rid of these, delete them. So here's this basic object that could become, kind of a panel like that. And then I could duplicate it, and I can extrude it. This kind of idea. I'm going to center that. Control Z, modify, center pivot. I can just kind of decide how big it's going to be, frame this in. So that's just a simple little panel. And it's got some additional shapes. I can't tell if that's a shape. Oops, I can't tell if that's a shape really, or if it is a full-on form, or if that's shadow. But I'm going to guess if the panel does kind of curve like that, then curve like this, then I could make those. So I've got a panel with some holes in it, and then if I wanted to, I could start to shape this a little bit on this side. I don't want to yet, because what I really want to do is just make some additional things. I don't want this to be too complicated right off the bat. Again, it's one of those things that you think, oh, you're going to think about how you're going to do it. You're going to have to think about basically how the approach. So if I hit Control D and duplicated that, and I move this over, and I have two edges. I'm going to move these two so you can see it a little bit better. Frame it in. So I have this edge and this edge. Now, I actually doesn't matter so much, but what I want to do is I'm going to take this edge here, frame that in again. Go to Object Mode, frame it in, and I'm going to grab this edge. So I have an edge all the way around. But what I want is this. This edge. This edge here doesn't need to be very thick. So if I need to make this little panel, and this edge here, I'm going to grab all of them, but then deselect these. And so a quick way to do something like this actually is through what's called a merge. And I'm going to turn the shading on. I'm sorry, not a merge or a bridge. So I have two objects. I'm going to move it close together. And what I want to do is combine them and then bridge the gap between the two. So this is how you do it. I have two objects, basically the same thing. I'm going to go to Mesh, say Combine. This creates a brand new object like this with its own new transform node. But the cool thing is now it's considered one thing. And I have this edge that goes here. And I want to get rid of these. So what a bridge does is it says take, and I want to take this and get rid of these. Say these points, these together, this and this, they have to equal so that you can't bridge things that don't have the same number of components. But since this edge and this edge, they're the exact same geometry, I can go into my tools here and say bridge and go to the options box, and I can create a linear path right across with no divisions. I hit apply. So now I've filled that. Now what's cool is this edge here, I just want to have one edge. I could delete that edge, or I could merge the edge together. What I typically do is I would just delete that edge because this didn't. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to take this, I'm going to go to Edit Mesh, I'm going to go to Bridge. Now what's cool is I have these different divisions. If I wanted to increase the divisions within those points, I wanted to say I just want 1 or 3. I have this edge here, and then I could say edit, I want to delete this edge. I only need this one, and it doesn't need to be this far apart either. So I could just move all of these just by grabbing these and just moving them as one big panel over like this. Oops. And I could continue, and if I want to get it closer. Oops, so my camera's square on. It's kind of hard to do it without it being square. So if I want to, I want to go back to my components here. Could even get rid of those if I don't want that one in the middle, but just kind of get to that point where I have that panel. And really, I don't need this one in the middle. I could just say, I could just delete that. Edit Mesh, delete. So now I have this panel like so. And I can continue building more little panels like that. And do it again. Now I'm going to pause the video and do that a couple more times.